Okie dokie. Alrighty. I like I like where we are. Hey, how's it going? I like where we are on the whole. Not a huge fan of, I don't know how you would figure that out anyways. Not a huge fan of how deep we went, but it is what it is. Checking some things out. You do? What do you mean? Yeah, I think we needed to have a pullback here. It's just doing the same thing it's doing before. So I mean, when I say really, I mean, I genuinely thought it was going to come down today after we looked at it yesterday. Yeah, I do like where we are. Yep. It's where we want to be. You need to find support right here. I don't like that it came below, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, could this come lower still? Like maybe. But I was looking for 482 or 483. So we were at 481, and I think we came slightly below. I don't need that right now. I think we came slightly below the... I got so many of these lines here. I don't know what this one is. Slightly below where I wanted us to be, but... So that's 482. So this has to be 481. Move that slightly down. Yeah, I mean, the way this is going is definitely by way of iteration, and I don't think that's bad. That's a good place to be at the end of a range. It's just a constant pattern. Rant. Apparently I went on a rant. I don't remember going on a rant today. Did I go on a rant at 10:30? Whatever, guys. I don't know. I don't know what rant he's talking about. I don't remember going on a rant. Rants are like when you're talking about random stuff. Yeah, we got the 480 mark, so that was gonna highly probable retrace. So I'm looking at this chart right now, and I was trying to figure out, like, okay, we definitely came below, so we went to 478 or 479, right? It's only in the pennies, but there's a small, like, 6-minute gap, and I saw it on the 10-minute, and then I saw it again on the 6-minute, And I don't think very much of these things too often, but it's at 475. And so this opened at 479 and this closed at 475. So that's a pretty big gap. How low did it go? Went to 476. Okay, so it's only a 1 penny. Forget it. No, it's a maybe, you know. There's a 618 retrace down here at 470, 472. There's a very small like penny gap right here. This seems to be the target to me, but I'm me, you know. So when I looked at the top to bottom cross over here, this seems like it's going. I mean, this was tough because when I came back from my little break, I thought that I had this drawn correctly, and then I looked at it again and I was like, no, not really. So we need to make sure this is right. Unlike bigger pictures, I don't worry too much about getting the lines just right until, all right, so there's one over there. I don't worry about getting the lines just right until we're approaching it. So like I know their estimations, like I don't expect them to be perfect. But then on the micro levels, like these little bitty levels, when you're looking at like 5 to 15 minutes or something, it's kind of hard to be precise unless you just frankly are very precise. So I wasn't really being precise earlier. I just drew a couple lines. Now I want to make sure I'm getting it right. This is a curiosity to me. It looks like it tried to cross and then came on top and then fell through. Very odd. Which just tells me like it's not really being respected anymore. So I'm going to use the outer portion here, maybe this one, since that rejected and then came through it. So this is like an upthrust. This was the place where we tried to advance and it failed. Weirdly, I kind of feel like if I leave off, if I leave off the, it's almost a better trend, isn't it? Just leave off the top. It almost reads better. So maybe I'll just do that. Just leave off the top. Not worry about it. So as a TA person, I don't want to fight the idea of Max Payne. Maybe that's the rant he was talking about. But I don't really know if that's what he was talking about. I don't really know why that would offend anybody. To say Max Payne isn't the best indicator is kind of silly. I don't know. Simple, I guess. Anywho, I don't really want to fight against it and have to keep like going back to like defending that position that 5 is going to be some kind of a sticky point, or I think it's self-evident. Like I feel like some things are just obvious. I just don't focus on them. Like I don't really need to focus on it too much until we get to maybe halfway through the week. If we don't see any change going into the end of the day today or tomorrow especially, yeah, of course. We don't typically see a Friday that's hyper bullish. I mean, it might just set up in the chop zone here and just chill out. So yeah, so the overall picture here is not one of despair though. Like I'm not worried about it. So if you ask about 5, I'm probably going to give you a similar answer until maybe tomorrow, which is I think that I think we're better off setting up at 550 this week, just being straightforward. But I also don't know what the operator has planned for an SOS. So like the last time we did an SOS before the big run up, it was kind of crazy. It was just a really quick wick up, wick down kind of thing. I mean, it all happened in a matter of like an hour. So did it do it? Yeah, it did it. It checked it. But it didn't mean that like, it doesn't mean that like every time it happens that it's going to do the same thing. Most of the time our SOS is fairly like straightforward. I mean, it goes up, builds a top, and then leaves. I mean, it's not complicated. It's usually not super long, I'll tell you that much. It depends on the length of the range. The longer the range, the more likely we may have a bit of a longer SOS. That's just what I've noticed. I don't know if it's 100% true all the time. I hate to be wishy-washy, but so short story is, yeah, I think we could end up at 550 this week. I genuinely don't think that's off the table yet. So 5 is nothing for me right now. It's kind of just there. It's an anchor point for the current setup, so we do need to get above it before we take off. And I talked about kind of iteration. So change of character, meaning like the way in which it's trading. You want to see the way in which it's trading change for the better. So in the case of what we're doing right now, it's very, very evident to me that what we've been doing is this kind of bounce, spike, bounce, spike, bounce, spike kind of nonsense. Now I'm waiting for that spike and I don't see it. And my biggest concern right now is we're going really low and I haven't seen that upward spike yet. So right at this very moment, I don't see anything that resembles like a flush or a double flush. Very evident like double flushes here. So the biggest concern I have at the moment is I was expecting that double flush to some degree to be in this like pocket right here around 490s, and that did not happen. So I don't know exactly what to say other than it hasn't happened, or if it has happened, I do not see it. Maybe it's there. There is a bit of a shakeout in the middle of this little tiny downtrend here. It's like right here, but it's super small. I don't really think it constitutes a shakeout or like a major shakeout, you know. Another argument might be that this pushed up high and this pushed down low. So maybe the goal here is already accomplished, like a high check and a low check. Maybe we don't need to have any more of that kind of stuff. We're just going to go ahead and find support. But regardless, I don't, you know, what an iteration is it's contained within itself. So we don't want to see it break the other way and change character the opposite direction, where the breakdown happens low and then there's like an upthrust and then it drops. That would be more obviously in the case of a bearish outcome, change of character to the bear side. Where it's not about making lower lows, so you have to understand that. It's really more about the rejection of 480. So I know I put it down here, but that rejection would actually be up here near like the 480 mark. That's the only thing here that would really signal me that this could be kind of messier for us in terms of like downside. So everything else so far looking pretty normal. We'll see what happens, you know. How low could it go? I don't know. 475, 470. Those are just retracements on this push, so it's not weird. It's not like a huge sell down or something. It's like you made an advancement, it didn't make a higher high. That obviously stinks, but it's okay if you're just iterating, you know. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. It hasn't changed its character yet. Maybe it still goes to that 618. Prior to this move right here, there was no change of character with that. Like if you look at the first two moves, like this one and this one, They both have 618 retraces. They both come down between the 618 and the 786. So they're set up to drive it up. They're setting up to drive it up as high as you need to, and then when they come back down, they're going right through the 786 to the 618 786 level. And they did the same thing here. And I know some people get weird about saying they or something, like, who are you talking about? Are you talking about these operators and stuff? Yeah, I mean, there's the 786 level right here, and then there's the 618. You can see it's set up on top and then recovers on top. So the setup is always the setup and recovery are always at that 618 level. Doesn't mean it can't go lower. But then it changed here because, and this was another thing that I was like, oh, okay, I don't know why I did that. It changed here by going completely below. So if you had asked me on earnings, and I think people did, it's fine. It's neither good or bad. It just is what it is. It's not good or bad. If you had asked me before, like, where did I think it was going to go, I was thinking, like, it was going to go ahead and make that 480, 479 touch. So that's what I thought we were going to do here. It made sense because the push-up wasn't that high. It went up to, like, I don't know, like 515 or something. You might have expected it to come down to, like, 470s, and that would have been that instead of drop really low. But you know, you look at the big picture and you're like, okay, but what does that mean? Not a whole lot. If you wanted to read this as a a kind of phase B top, I guess you could. I think it's a little bizarre to read it that way, but I guess you could. Since this didn't come higher. Auto reaction, support, phase B. It's a silly way to read the chart. This could be a bottom. So I guess your retest could come as low as 455 by that measure. I imagine this was the support at 483, which makes more sense to me because it's the middle. So that's what I was eyeballing today. I still think it could just stop here and go, but I also am like kind of questioning my own. I like to play devil's advocate on my own TA a lot. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to think about, okay, well, these are the retracements. What does it mean if it drops back down here? Does it mean anything? It could be really bad, depending on how you look at it. Especially if it went to like 854 and then failed to come back up. That would be a huge deal because it's never done that before. We haven't had that kind of rejection and then continuation underneath 483. Not since back here, and even in this case, that plunge recovers pretty quick. And ever since, it's been steeper and steeper. So, I don't know, man. There's always the kind of the self-doubt that comes in, and you're thinking about, well, what happens if I'm wrong, and what would it look like to break down here? Those things are hard to. Well, I don't even remember what I was saying. I started reading the comments. I don't know what Nikkei. Well, we'll see. I'm not going to go back through my TA every time someone comes here with a different opinion, but I do feel very bullish about the overall setup. So I'm going to just withhold. Well, why would that hurt? Why would that hurt AMC? As Japan is also another one of those markets that has a lot of tech-heavy stuff. But AMC is not a tech stock. I'm bullish short term. Japan's predominantly known for its tech and its automotive industry. I mean, there's probably other things, but I'm failing to see how that relates to the movie industry. I'm not, you guys don't have to agree. I just don't understand it's fine. I don't understand the Japanese market comment. I'm trying to understand it. Maybe they know something I don't know. I don't know why an American market would suffer because of a foreign market unless there was some kind of a direct, I don't know, reason, I guess. I'm just trying to figure that out. So you think that the index funds are following the Japanese market? And due to the carry trade, reverse carry trade. Okay. So where are you guys hearing this from? Japanese market is crashing from rise in their rates. It's almost like a margin call for all investors. Japan is playing with their interest rates. If the large brokers are having to liquidate American stocks to do damage control in their Japanese stocks, I could see it having a domino effect. Yeah, maybe. Is it possible we're just in a falling wedge and you were off by 4 cents? Yeah, I mean, it's always possible I'm off. Institutions have been borrowing the yen for free and investing in the stock market. University of Virginia economist Edward Burton. Okay. I mean, you guys sound like you know what you're talking about, so you feel free to keep talking about it. I appreciate that. It's good education. I'll have to look into it because it's not something I'm super familiar with. So, okay, I see what you're saying. Bendy the Bard had just asked about why upside. Drago Scythe also asked about it. You know, my chart makes it look a little bit like a wedge, but I would say that it's not like a very strong like wedging action. It's a little more like just a channel down. When you look closely, you can't really see any kind of serious narrowing. There's like a very, very, very light narrowing of the range. I kind of want to just default to saying I don't think it's much of a wedge because I know there was this big spread at the top, but that's really just normal for any change in direction. And then the rest of this has been fairly regular. Like it is narrowing maybe like slightly, but I probably wouldn't measure it from here, forward. I don't know. It's just not the strongest wedge. Usually you want to see like multiple hits. It's the only way I can have like 2 or more than 2 hits on this top is to drag it down. It almost just looks like a channel. So it is what it is. Maybe you could do a retracement value on it. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference either way. Probably your retracement's going to go back to 503. So that looks about right. 504 is a 618. Why do I like 618 so much? I don't really. I only like it because it seems to be the flavor of the week. You know, like it is obviously that golden pocket, but I have to tell you, like I don't really have any real bias towards any retracement level. But lately, AMC's been really liking that 618. It's been a common retracement point. And I'm talking about for supports, not necessarily the lows. You know, we might hit 786 or 854. I'm talking about where the supports are built. So BOJ said last night they were not raising rates in these market conditions. If yen runs, I think we get a surprise rate cut in the U.S. Maybe that's our catalyst. Do you watch Elliott Wave, Sage? No. I don't really watch a lot of people. I mean, I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. Like, occasionally will tune into a video maybe once a week for someone if I see something that I want to watch. A lot of my learning I just do from reading about concepts. So it's not a great place to be, but I've talked about this before. Like I don't do social media stuff or whatever, so I don't get my news from social media ever. And sometimes people get the news and they get the ideas out faster through those kinds of programs, so everybody knows everything like really fast. You might as well assume that I don't know. Like, and I know that sounds really irresponsible, but part of the thing about that for me is like, at this point, I don't really feel like anything has greatly affected the stock to the point where I needed to be super in tune with the news. There are things that happen that I'm like, okay, obviously that affected us somehow. But like this pullback doesn't have much to do at all with the yen, in my opinion. And I know you guys are going to be like, well, that's kind of a mean thing to say. Is it though? I'm not being mean by saying it's going to come back down here and then it happens and then someone says, well, we're going to keep going down because of the yen. And I'm like, well, teach me about it so I can learn and understand how that might affect the markets. Then I'll go research it. And if it makes sense that that might be part of the reason that the markets are selling down, then sure, like I would agree with that. But if you're just gonna, if someone just comes to me and says, hey, oof, this came real low. Hey, yeah, I don't like that where it is. If they just came to me and said, hey, this is the reason AMC specifically is selling down, I would be like, okay, but what then do you say about me talking about it coming down here yesterday? And I had no knowledge of the yen. You know what I mean? Like, it's not unlike predicting the weather. I mean, obviously you're not always going to get it right, but it would be like someone saying like, hey, this, I don't know. I don't even know what you would say. Never mind. It's a bad analogy. I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm not trying to be ignorant or angry or anything like that. Like, I'm not trying to push back on this idea that you're coming up with, or that you're telling me about, rather, not coming up with. I need to research it. I don't want to be ignoring those things. So I definitely need to learn about carry, you know, that concept of, I guess, carry trade and the reverse carry trade. But I've got to just tell you, like, this retracement is just a retracement to me back to a support level until it isn't. So I don't have to, I don't really have a lot to say, I guess. It's kind of like, if you ask me about it, or if you say something about it, I'll hear you, but I'm not sure if I can comment on that because that's not my wheelhouse. You know, maybe I needed to make it my wheelhouse. So I'll work on it. I'm just like, okay, but then are you saying that this just happened because of luck? Or was there a technical aspect that was already setting up for it? In which case, doesn't that mean they already know about it? In which case, doesn't that just play into the format that we're already looking at? And so on and so forth, you know. Said revolving credit dropped 1.7 billion. Biggest drop since COVID. Somebody got margin called on that whole thing. I'm optimistic. I'm bullish. I'm being very conservative lately because we don't have a confirmation. There's no confirmation up. There's no confirmation down. So you're still in the range. And these two moves right here are just liquidity tests up and down. This one would need to read like a final spring or a final flush if what I'm thinking is correct, which is that idea that we're driving the price through these iterative motions. My main concern right this second is that this particular motion right here is not finished yet. I don't feel like we got any kind of massive up or down move. I'm just trying to warn you, like I don't know if it's going to do it, but it doesn't seem like it's there. So what I'm talking about is when you quote unquote iterate, you're seeing when people talk about algorithms, this is about as far as I want to go with that. You're just seeing a trading method that gives a particular outcome. And if the trading methodology here is we're going to do a double flush after like, a buy-in and then double flush low and then buy-in. So you see this big buy-in here. It's easy to argue it now that we've seen multiple ones, but I was talking about this before it really happened. I've talked about it quite a bit, that there's a chance that you get these kind of iterative functions and you get these shrinking into the end. So this measurement tool would be like, all right, buy in, get ready to distribute, double flush to come low, buy in, get ready to distribute, double flush to come low. And what I want to see is a change of character that doesn't continue to make lower lows. It could be that, and it's unfortunate, but we know that this in extended hours came lower. We came pretty far down. If I remember right, I think it was like 415 or something ridiculous. And there was a marker way over here, I think in extended hours, at the beginning of the range. You guys are, why don't you just look? I feel like it was not this level, although this is 415. But anywho, so there was an extended hours move, and that's the only real concern right now is that we continue to get lower lows, and somebody really wants to go back there in regular trading hours. But I think that largely, I'm seeing this as like shorts covering. Push, 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 and then leave. I don't know what else to say. So my outlook is very bullish, maybe more than it needs to be. In terms of creek crosses and checks, there's a check right there on the creek. And so, I mean, guys, if it holds here and it doesn't have some kind of crazy flush motion, and then we break above 503, that should be a change in the character iteration, like the change of the iterative character of this. I hope you guys can see that motion I'm talking about there. And you can see why right now, if we got that double flush, you just don't want it to make a new low. You know? It's always easier. Yeah, it was 414, so that was pretty low. So I don't know. So I feel like at this point, I don't really want to see any kind of crazy drop. I think we've already got our crazy drop Monday. If we got one more, it would need to be like lightning speed, and then we would need to leave. I wouldn't want it to just sit here again. Because you come to the end of the line eventually, right? And you can no longer justify, you know, a bull trade when you're just sitting underneath supports or sitting underneath, especially 483, but we haven't done that yet. So the call out was, hey, we're probably going to return back down and catch this. I thought we were going to do it faster. We did it really slow, like mechanically. So ignore this other line. This is for a change of character down. This is something else. I drew earlier a line that I thought we were going to come down and do a flush here and then drive the price down low and catch that 480 level. There's a great amount of intersection here. This is a big deal to me, this creek cross. This one is the one from the tippy top. So, you know, if you were going to only put one on your chart and you only had one to use, that's the one I would use right now. You're like, really, Booksy? You can't possibly say that. No, I'm serious. Like, if I only had to pick one line, it would be this one as it's evolving, and then I would consider the vertical, like where it is vertically, because this is the one of the main purposes of these kind of double flushes is to jump a creek. You don't have any kind of a spring without a creek jump, creek being resistance. So where is the resistance? Did you jump it? Kind of, you know, and this is what I'm saying about the iteration stuff is like, I could see how maybe you do another one into Friday and just sit here and do nothing into 5. I get where people are coming from with that. I do. But this is the check that matters to me, is like, this is the back test right now. So I had it. I don't know why I deleted it. I do this stuff all the time. And frankly, I don't know what I'm doing when I do this. I guess I just want to see something. So what's been happening is that as we've done these iterations, I don't know if you can see it super easily, but there's these yellow lines going out. These have been kind of the resistance lines. La resistance. You guys are like, why you sound so bummed out, Booksy? Because the USA, I'm going to royally give you guys a huge... spoiler alert. So close your ears if you don't want to hear it. It's about USA men's volleyball. They lost to Poland. It was really, really disheartening. I watched the whole thing. Could not believe it. They were up 2-1 and they lost. They went to Poland came back, forced a game 5 and won. I was like, no. And they were injured too, man. All they had to do was just keep playing. They were hot. They were going. And all of a sudden, Poland just rallied. Great for Poland. I'm happy for them. Apparently, they've been shut out in like quarterfinals for like 4 decades or something. I don't even know. 4 Olympics or something. I don't know. But that means that USA can only hope to get a bronze. I hope they get it for the sake of all the players that are retiring. It's like a huge amount of the team is retiring. I'm like, dang, man. They had it. They just choked. They couldn't keep it up. Poland started getting that like comeback energy. Anyways, good for Poland. Bad for the USA. Bad for Booksy's morale. He's like, great. He's talking about Olympics again. Here we go. Yeah, I hate that, dude. I'm sorry. No, Brazil lost to... I don't know what happened to Brazil. They lost to USA. I don't know if they went into another survival match or something. I don't think they did. They lost to... USA, like, did pretty good against Brazil. Like, I thought they beat them, like, 3-1. If you're talking about basketball, that's different. USA, like... pretty much rolled over Brazil in basketball, but basketball has always been a strength. The world is definitely catching up to USA in terms of basketball, though. Everybody's getting better. So, yeah, but I was talking about USA volleyball, men's indoor. I'm like, these matches have been amazing. been a really fun Olympics sport to watch. I was saying that earlier today, but I went and watched during my break. I went and watched the match that I missed this morning, and I was just so, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, guys. We got to 2-1, and I'm like, whoever wins the next one is gonna win. That's what I said in the back of my head. I was like, if Poland turns this around, they're gonna win. And then they did, and I was like, great. And I watched the 5th game just to watch it, but I was like, they're gonna win. They got the momentum. They kept it going. They're gonna win. USA couldn't have given it back and come back, I don't think. There was something about the air that changed. So, all right. So, like, one of my bigger concerns right now is we don't want to see too much freedom of movement underneath 480s. Like, we want to see that still violently protected. So, I feel like there's a need here. Perhaps we might still see this kind of double flush. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, watch for this because it could happen. I don't know if we came low enough. Maybe we did. To me, a creek is like more flexible. So while some would look at this and say, no, it's like a rigid line, I kind of look at it thinking it is and it isn't. Like we have this rigidity from the 2 first points. But then if you look at the second, or if you look at the advancement here, it really rises quite a bit. There's a lot of pushes on resistance above on these 2 pushes. One is July 30th. The second was on August 2nd. And you can see that even though the creek is, yes, from a technical standpoint, anchored on these two points, I don't think that it's not somewhat flexible. Like it to me, it looks like it was raised a bit here. So I don't know. We might be done. We might not be done. Either way, I wanted to see if it would hit 480s. I wanted to see if it would have a double flush. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. That's kind of my biggest worry right now is we're really just in like a sinking S-curve, kind of like these shallow S-curves, and we're about to make that big push and then dump. I hope not. But the way things have been set up lately, it does seem likely. So I want to see it. I want to see it not do that, but maybe if it does do it, it goes high and doesn't come back low. That'd be nice. You know, like pump high here and then not come back all the way, but like stay high up there in the double flush. That'd be nice. So, anywho, confirmation will be at this point above these levels I keep going back to volleyball, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like reeling with the loss. It's not even my loss. You guys are like, what are you doing, dude? Sorry. I'll try to focus. Whew, just gotta breathe. Just gotta breathe through it. You're like, are you crying, Booksy? No. This right here is the way it's been working. Is every time we've approached, here's how the iterations are playing out, right? Every time we've approached this, we've done a backup to this particular level. It's close to the 618 in reverse, close to it. So if you were to go back and remeasure this advance, I think it might be this one, or maybe it's the one above. This one's not. It's a little higher. It's more like 786. It's close to the 618. If you look at where it's chopping. This one, let's take a look. Again, doing it in reverse, kind of upside down, so that I can see the how high it came back up. I'm not really using the fibs. I'm just using it right this second to give myself like another perspective. This is the same deal. It's like they're kind of camping at the 618 and then pushing to the 786. So you might expect that wherever that low is, we would camp around a 786 retracement and then push to the 786. So that actually implies that you come back down to like 444, which is kind of crazy. But just in theory, if it did the same thing over and over again, you guys are like, what? That's the thing is like, I don't know if it does do that, you know? Like that's why I'm sitting here talking to you about it, because at this point, a change of character would be like not going that low, not setting up the same way. And I'm suggesting to you that I think that should happen soon because we did jump the creek. So not going down to 444 and having a 618 and then chopping here and then pushing up to, 504, which is where that little ledge is. Not doing that would be really positive. I hope that makes sense. Like, no, dude, that just seems really bad. I don't want to go to 444. Well, you got to remember, even if it did do that, that's a higher high than over here. So at current pacing, like this is set up to not make a lower low, which is really positive. So in the event that we went low, I'm going to put a marker here at like 444 because, and I'm going to make a note on it, because in the event that we went low, I'm going to put inverse fibs comparison because that would remind me to double check the fibs. Because again, in theory, like the way these have retraced on the last 2 times is that we've come up, camped out around the 618 and then pushed up to the 786. So when you look at 480 and below, you want that to be support. We want this iteration to finish with a jump, finish with a hit on 480, finish with that midline touch, finish with that strength, that this is support again, and not continue to do what it has been doing. Because right now, if it flushes to the upside and then it dumps down to 444, it's not holding this creek. It's not holding 480. So that's what I'm trying to say is like it's already at the point where, look at the compression of this. We've gone from a drop that's like pretty wide to like narrow to super narrow, like all within a day. So at this point, I'm like thinking in the back of my head, I don't know exactly what the shrinking looks like, but I sure as heck would not expect it to take very long. Like I would not expect it to take this much time. I expect it to take less time. So if we ended up gapping, I frankly don't know if it will happen, right? So I'm just saying it out loud. But if we ended up gapping down for whatever reason to 444, that to me, it's like, that should be it. Like you can't compress anymore. Like where are you going to go? You get smaller than this, you basically like run out of room. And then you would see it come back up, chop here, I guess, and then push back up to this level. And then I guess that would do it all. So what I'm showing you right now is like, this is what an iteration would look like if it did the exact same thing Fibonacci wise that it did last time. Is it would do this down to 444, something like that. It would push back up, round up on the top here. Who else knows what's being hit? I couldn't even imagine at this point. And then there'd be some kind of an upthrust at the end to get to this level. And then I guess it would fail again. You guys are like, how long did this go on? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you can see that that's the way it would look from an iteration standpoint. If you're just looking at, hey, let's see what this pattern has been, that's the pattern. So I don't want it to do that. I want it to do something different. This is what I'm trying to say right here. Like, I want to see a change of character and iteration. I don't want to see a breakdown. That's obvious. That's kind of like, this is a bearish change. I should like color code this or something. Maybe I'll just make it red or something like that. Because that would be a very different setup altogether. And it's not the same thing as what we're talking about here for bullish side. So lately, the end of the days have been pretty much a letdown every day. I feel like there's not really been a lot of great excitement. It looks like it's doing the same thing it did here. So it looks like it's ledging. So I think they're going to try to do it. So I would love if instead of this, we only went down to like 472 or something. Like that to me would be super bullish. If this dropped to like 472 on a double flush and then just like rips back up and then it breaks above here, that would be a huge change of character. That would be like, oh, we're doing the same motions, like quote unquote, the same up and down motions, but now we're like advancing instead of falling, right? And you probably would even see, if you're really looking hard, I don't like to do that because it's exhausting again, but like if you were really looking hard at it, you probably would see that this still has the same iterations. Like it's still doing the same thing. It's just doing it like up here now. So then this, instead of the spikes dropping low, they no longer drop low. Now they're just doing this. And this is very bullish. If you guys saw this, you'd be like, oh, look, it's going up. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's compressed. And you're like, hey, that doesn't look the same. That looks like what happens when AMC like ascends. And yeah, that's exactly right. It's just this kind of arcing and then drop pattern. Right now, the arcing and drop is successfully achieving new lows. But this setup right here does not do that. So I really don't want to see it come down below 444. And if it does, we'll just take it from there. I don't know what to tell you. We'll just have to analyze it, see what happens. But this is the kind of stuff that we typically see when AMC is really bullish. And then it just starts running, and you can't even tell what's happening anymore because it gets like really parabolic. And you're like, oh, okay. Most people won't look at this and think that the run-up part looks anything like this. But it probably will. You know, to some degree, the function of this, meaning like the buy up and drop, the function of that would not change. It would just be doing it on a rise. And it would be really compressed and fast and all that jazz. An interesting, too, concept, because if you think about this picture right here, it's like, I don't know if I would look at it this way normally, but this idea of like compression has me thinking about it a little bit. Some of you guys are like, talk about GME. GME came back down. Like, it's frustrating, but it did come back down. It's okay. I said this earlier that I thought it was pretty likely that we were going to come back because we were at a pinch point and we weren't moving. And it would be nice to just break out, but coming back down to retest this is like retesting a floor. Essentially, you can see it as however you want to see it, but if we come back up, it's an inverse head and shoulder, right? So this was a really critical spot. It would have been very, very odd to break this all at once. That doesn't usually happen. Would have been super bullish. Yeah, it would have been super bullish. But it's a three-way creek intersection. 3 different major important creeks that I would follow that I'm undoubtedly like been there for a little while now on my chart, but this is a really big deal, this little pocket. So it would have made more sense to me to come back, find the support, and then advance more separately through these over the next couple of days potentially. But yeah, it's kind of weird to think about this as like, oh, it's iterating this way, and then it continues to iterate that way, but to the upside. But I mean, if you think about the nature of this iteration, look at what happens to it over time, you know? Like even here, this as it gets compressed starts looking really different the next time we advance, you know? It starts looking more and more and more compressed. And as you're going forward, it's easy to kind of get pigeonholed into thinking like, well, it's not the same thing. I don't think so. I think it's just the same thing, but it's happening on like a high octane compression. And I would go through and prove it right now. I'm not going to do that. But I think that this, as the way it's becoming sharper, just indicates more of that bullish action at the end. And then finally it's like, boom, you know. And each one of these in succession is just a push up and a pullback. It's not complicated. Straightforward. So I guess what I'm saying is that like I just want to see the change of character. Once that happens, I think it's going to start moving up. We're pretty close. I don't normally try to overthink this or track it per se, but I'm going to do it right now because it's pretty evident and I think we're really close to the end. So I'm going to continue to try to do that. So we're ledging right now. I said that, I don't know if that's a real term, but that's what I'm going to call it. We're kind of coming up and building out a sideways ledge. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure this is not going to just explode to the upside and keep going. It just reminds me a lot of these ones, which were flattening kind of shallow S curves. I could be wrong. Maybe it does just hit it and it's done, and we can just say, thank goodness it's over. I hope that's the case, but I'm just preparing for the worst here, and I think the worst would be probably a head fake. You know, this one technically didn't have a head fake except in after hours. And so the drop didn't actually occur in regular trading hours. It happened during the earnings call. This would be kind of different if it just went sideways and then dropped after hours, but it's doing the same thing. You can see the spread is widening out here at the end. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this isn't going to just rip to the upside. I know you guys are like, what? Why not? It's just not the way this thing's built out. It doesn't usually do that. So you can see right here, the widening is starting. The widening. And this build out is getting wider. And then typically what we see is that there's kind of like a creek break that happens. Yeah, I bet it's this one. There's a creek break that happens, and then a flush. So the creek break already happened. There's the M cross. There's no test on it, of course. Why test it when you can drive the price up and come back later, right? So there's no check on it. It just passes over it. I would love for this to just hit 480s and go, but I feel like normally what we see is this then pushes up. It fails somehow at this top to continue. So you have this kind of widening failure to continue, and we'll come back to it later. In my opinion, this would be like an upthrust, and then you basically drive the price back down, and you probably come back to hit that creek. Lately, it's been going below it, so that's the idea, you know. Maybe it goes really high. Maybe it only goes 1 penny higher than 486. Maybe it only goes to 487. Both are considered like an upthrust. If it tries to advance and then fails, it's an upthrust. Like, if it tries to advance over that resistance. Oh my gosh. Did Glenn Miller really just come on here to say see you in October again? Hey man, I'm glad that you got that trade on that drop, but it has not gone to 3, and it still has not broken down and showed that this is resistance yet. So maybe that happens tomorrow, and then I'll be like, all right, well, we're heading down. Maybe that happens at the end of the week here. That to me would be a change of character. So I'm not going to join you in pumping like $3 until that happens. I'm not going to do it. So you feel free to speak your mind. I'm just saying, like, I've not seen anything that's changed my opinion yet. All right. I don't know why you would do that, but okay. You do whatever you want to do. I just hope you recognize, like, this move right here does not look like a move that is about to dump off the face of the earth. I'm just saying. It just doesn't. Now, if it did that in reverse, I would say, yeah. Like up here, you could have been short. That makes sense. I was fairly, I wouldn't say I went short, but I was fairly bearish up here on these 3 tops. This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why in the world you would say that this is somehow short. Like this is somehow selling pressure. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just not with you on it. But good luck, man. I hope you do not lose your money. I hope you make money and at least have the the courage to speak about it in a place where predominantly people are bullish. I don't feel that there's any reason to be angry that you're bullish. I'm not mad. Or that you're bearish. I totally understand $3 as a target. I totally agree. If we break down, that's probably where we're going to head to. I just don't see it right now. Still don't see it. Nothing about these two moves ended up being very bearish to me. You guys are like, what about the lower highs? It's iterating, guys. That's all I could say. It's a weird concept. I don't fully understand all of it myself, but all I can tell you is anytime it's iterated down, 99% of the time it's reversed the other way. Anytime it's iterated up, it's gone down hard, you know. But anytime it iterates down like this, especially after making a major creek jump, it is not bearish. So I'd be happy to be wrong. Maybe this is the time, you know, where this proves me wrong. It's no longer a bullish thing to see it. I don't know how, but I guess it's possible that it just changed. So I'm looking at this like how look at everything else. It jumped the creek. It did. The waveform jump, it's been holding. It's building out support. There it is right there. It jumped over. It's building out support. It's not proving that this midline is bearish. It's just constantly buying up every time it drops underneath 485. Yes, March was the one that had a downward shrinking iteration. That's correct. That's one of the easiest ones to see. January did as well, although it's harder one to show, but it's there. I did a really long format graph a long time ago on January 2021, and I found it. But it's kind of the same thing as you see here, like this double push up, these ascending patterns where they're driving the price back down after they start pushing it up. It's right here as well. You see this? Like this drive to the downside is particularly good. I mean, you don't want to see it. I don't know how else to explain it. Like you don't want to see this in reverse. This kind of stuff where it's like poking its head up and really far and then trading really low. But this stuff is like the opposite. It's definitely going up high. Yeah, there's distribution on the tops, but that has to be the case or else you can't come back down. But every time it comes back down, it's like right back up, right back up, right back up. You know what I mean? And then it's shrinking down. And I've talked about probably March. I've talked about it enough for a million years of my life. I don't really want to always talk about March, but it's an easy one to see. So it's like a good one because there's a clear and evident pattern there. And that's this guy. And so you see the same motion being repeated like over and over and over and over and over again. And if y'all are wondering, like, the only thing about this particular setup that looks maybe worse than March is, in some regards, is that little upthrust that happened, that weird upthrust that happened like right here. So I've already kind of talked about why I think that's not the greatest, but it's the same pattern of trading. Like you're trading up, you're dropping, you're trading up, you're dropping. The tops are all the same. And as you drop, you're like accelerating. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh no, we're doomed. But it's actually a really tiny micro iteration on the bottom, and then it reverses. And before you know it, you're like walked your way back out, and then boom, slingshot. The same thing applies. And look at the pattern here, and look at the downward thrusts on it, guys. This is what I'm trying to talk about. Like, look at the difference between anywhere that's bearish versus bullish. And you just see it like so clearly. Like when it's bullish, it has these downward moves still. It's still going lower. It is. But notice like it doesn't spend very much time in almost any of these bottoms except for this one. This is like the only one. But every time it drops down, it's like dip, 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 dip. It's like a bouncing ball. Go back to 2020. You guys are like, those are big ears, man. Yeah, they are, but notice where the actual buy-in is happening here. It's staying elevated. Is it trading more in the tops or the bottoms here? A lot more in the tops. Way more time spent up here, way more time spent up here. And by the way, again, same thing, you know, iterating, iterating, iterating. But it's going down. Yeah, it is going down. This is not the best example because this is almost even time in both top and bottom. But it's there too. Buy up, buy up, buy up. Raising the bar every time. Jump the creek. Buy up, buy up, buy up, jump the creek. Buy up, buy up, buy up, jump the creek. I mean, it's not complicated. Buy, jump the creek. You compare that to like the bearish times where we've had issues and they're hard to tell, you know, they definitely are hard to tell, but like when you go back and you look at these areas and you look at where this is bullish versus bearish, it's pretty obvious. Like when you see a bear top, you spend almost exclusively all your time in that bottom and you're just failing to advance. And you see this kind of stuff repeatedly. It's not always crystal clear, so I don't want to make it sound like all you have to do is look for shapes. That's not really true. It's complicated because like you still have to have distribution in a wave. Like all of these guys have a little pointy top on them. They have to. They still have to have the little double cat ear because that range has to distribute in order to get back down. But then those bottom ranges are just like barely there. They just tap it and come back up. Like there's almost like there's an invisible power buying up shares. You guys are like, yeah, we get it, Booksy. You don't have to be a jerk about it. So do I think it looks more like this bottom than like these others? Yeah. I mean, it looks way more like a buy up to me, at least for now. And it's easy enough to tell. So I don't know what the big deal is here. Like, I've said it before, I'll keep saying the same thing. It's super simple. Like you don't have to be a genius here to know what 484 is. You can see it as it's interacted with this range the whole way through. It's absolutely like the buy-sell zone for everybody. You know what I mean? So when we've been above it, we spent a lot of time trading, trying to break out. You know, when we come down, it's like dip, come back up. 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 Blah, 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 blah. So on and so forth. So I don't doubt that we could have a change of character and then something could happen. But even in the actual like even in that realm of possibility for a bear, I would think it's very strange to do this repeatedly and then have a change down here. I mentioned this before, but it almost makes more sense if you're a bear to consider an upthrust first. Because I don't see this as a successful attempt to, you might say, well, it made a lower low here. Yeah, during extended trading hours, and then it immediately came back up and closed within that same day back above the support at 480s. There was zero effort at all to push this down during regular trading hours, you know? I mean, it's a silly thing to sort of argue that this is somehow a lower low on the merits of selling. It just doesn't make any sense. It was a huge gap down. It was eaten up. It found support at 464. It found support again at 480s. So I'm still going to sit here and be like hyper bullish until otherwise. This to me is like, that's the iteration, that's the iteration, that's the iteration. It's not really going very low considering when you look at stuff like March, you know, that dip came down real low. This is still elevating itself back above 485 every time. So that could happen, that change could happen down here. But if I were to be a bear, in some ways I would think like it's almost necessary to come up and then do a distribution and get rid of your shares. I'm very doubtful that maybe this is what's happening and they're doing it like low key, but I'm very doubtful that like Vanguard has been selling off their 30 million shares over the course of these tops. This is about the only place where you see something that looks like maybe an institution changing their mind. And that's a possibility, but then the resulting action is not distribution. Like, it looks like it's buy up to me. Like, okay, it's staying elevated. It's staying elevated. I just don't see, like, there should have been a change here. If this was going to be, oh, we're going to be distributive, maybe it would have went up and just like hit the top and then hit the top again, you know, and then come back down. It's like poke its head up, and because that's what you want to do. You want to push it up high to sell. I mean, it makes sense the more you think about it. You guys are like, what? You cover your short position, you buy up, you sell by driving the price high, trapping in the buyers, re-entering short positions. You want to get those discounts. So, like, I've flipped the chart up a lot lately, and I'm like, this just looks like Upthrust to me. When I flip the chart upside down, it looks like a distribution, which means it looks like accumulation, you know? This looks like a weird, rounded, like, Upthrust journey that's not going very well. And all that's required is, like, a simple change of direction at this point. If somebody buys up back over 503, I think it's going. I don't think we're looking back, and I think it's going to be very, very fast, the blink of an eye, to the other side. So I'm a little lost as to why you would then full port here calls, thinking that it's going to run when, if the market turns around and comes back up to 212.48 and advances here back above, I just don't, like, it would be a massive trap, you know? You guys are like, well, it ain't happening, Booksy. Maybe not, but 210s looks possible from here. We'll see. This may not have come down low enough. Frankly, it could come back down to 200. My point is just that it doesn't really make sense why you would advertise to everybody that you've like doubled down on puts and you're going to watch, you know what I mean? I just don't get that. Like, where is the confirmation that this is bearish? I don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something, you know? I'm not perfect. There's an upthrust. So it's happening. You guys are like, what's happening? The last minute kind of push up. There it is, right on schedule. Right on the schedule. Yep, pushed above 485. Let's see how high it goes. So this would be an upthrust that doesn't succeed. Y'all are like, what? Booksy's rooting for AMC? No, I'm not rooting for it to fall. I just think that this is not what it normally looks like. Normally we don't cross this way. We would cross up, try to push, and then fail. When we come back down, that's where the real test is. If we don't come back below like 478 here, for example, or like back below 43, and then we start breaking out again, I think it's a change of character, period. Like, I think it's reversed. But I will hold my ultimate confirmation until we start moving back up these levels, 503, 521, 545. Those are the ones that are going to be a big deal. And I'm going to be like going crazy, like, yeah, let's go. You know what's cool about it too is what should happen. Got to be careful with that word. That's a dangerous word nowadays. But what should happen is that if you did get another iteration here, like, it would be something like this, where this is like smaller, right? And I'm not saying this is like a fib thing, but it kind of would look like that, where it's like expanding out. What would be really cool is if we could see this build out, if there is another iteration down and it does it again and it succeeds at not going lower, We finally get that final dip. I really want it right now. I want it right here. I think this is a good place for it. I know I don't want to go this low. This is just the measurement. You guys are like, I don't want to go that low either. I know. I don't want it to go this low. But I think if we get that last dip right now, it's kind of a great time to do it because you see where we bottomed out today? It's at this 482 mark, and I'm looking back over here, and this is where that first upthrust started. I think it was a way of like touching down on the surface before coming below it. They marked it off, and it's been acting as kind of this like dump through zone right here. I would love to see that try again and fail to go lower, make a lower low. And that would be a big, big deal. And then ultimately start breaking out. So that hasn't happened yet, but it'd be awesome to see that happen, not come down as low, come back above. And then when it comes back, this is where it hits like 485. And everybody's like, really? Is this happening, Booksy? And I'm going to be like, I don't know. Don't know. You guys like, stop pretending to be French. I actually have a lot of French blood in me. Like that explains a lot. Baguettes. Baguettes. Bam. Wordsmith. Living up to the name, Books. Living up to the name. I actually have more German in me than anything else. So, a lot more German than anything else. But like, mostly German, French, Italian. So you're just an American mutt from European blood descent. Typical Caucasian. Yep. Pretty typical. This right here, though, would be a breakdown that if you then saw it reverse, the cool thing about this is if you can manage to reverse, I think, though I'm not positive, I think if this, I guess it probably wouldn't be here, would it? It would be like here. I don't know why this is red. I messed it up. Yeah, this is starting to look more and more like Monday instead of Friday, which sucks, but like what? It's just the way that these things are timed. It's like compressing into Friday. So I would put this as like, you see this model of like M cross that we're talking about? Notice how like when you start compressing it and you bring that higher low up, you notice how this becomes like just a normal jump. That's how it should look. So if it started doing it again, it would be like this, where you're coming down and then you're basically doing it again, but now you're doing it like really high up. And this is where things get kind of interesting because in theory, this kind of becomes a model for, I mean, it's the same thing. Chop, 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 chop. Instead of going lower, it's going higher. See how it becomes like a model for advancement? And it almost looks just like a normal like push up with a, this is like classic AMC stuff, like going into like a parabola motion. And what I'm saying is cool about that is the, like nothing's cool about that, Booksy. No, it's cool. Okay, it's cool. What would be cool about that would be that compression leads to like a hyperbolic kind of move, and then that's where you get like crazy price action. And this one might drop a little low, but the rest of these should be pretty solid. And these would be like creek crosses, creek crosses, creek crosses. All of that could happen here, but I think we're missing that last drop. So I don't feel like we're going to just walk away from it unscathed. Well, I don't like the idea of pushing out dates, pushing out dates, pushing out dates. At some point, this thing has to go ham, you know? So this is where I would look for that, I suppose. If it did move, it would have been today, in my opinion. Like, I think if it was going to move up to 550, most likely would have been today. So at this point, probably better just to assume that we're going to chill out Friday around 5, just in general. That's probably what I would see. So maybe tomorrow's a little red and then it builds back to green. Probably push out a bit, chop here, Friday, ends the week at like 493 or something. Monday, you get a breakout. But this would be a change of character for sure if it can hold. So my expectation would be that these would then layer up very quickly. And I don't know. What happened on the last one was kind of abnormal, but it could be some of that happens in extra hours. Frankly, if we did something like this, I would expect it to pretty much just push to like that 580 area, and then much like what we were talking about before, you probably have some kind of maybe a quick backup, but that's probably it. And then it's just like going. That's accelerating. It's been like 3 weeks of delays. I wouldn't call it a delay. I would just say I was wrong about timing. You can hold that against me. It's fine. There may be some truth to that idea of delay, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like, I couldn't tell you what that is because I don't know. Do I think that it's possible the operators decided to chop a little longer? Maybe. All I know is this compression right now, at least visually, kind of feels like it would probably end on Friday. So no, I mean, if my interpretation of timing is wrong, it's wrong. I mean, there's no need to sugarcoat it. I was off. The only thing I could tell you for that is just I don't really feel like I had a lot of hope of run except for early July. And once that went by, it was like, it's just gone, you know. So the next setup looks like August 14th. Starting here should have been like the breakout period this week. This looks really good. I mean, look, just go back and again, observe like what's happened here. Like, it's not exactly awesome that this went to a new low, but as soon as this goes down and doesn't make a new low and finds support, just look at where that is. This is such an important area for us. I cannot stress enough the significance of this move right here and then the subsequent breakout. So if it happens to take the rest of the week, then that's so be it, you know. As long as it doesn't make a new low and it finds support again, I think it's ready to go. I genuinely think we're that close. I would be very, very confused if it continued to chop. I mean, look at the compression here. This is insane. Like, the visual is like hurting my brain, like how tight this is getting. You know? So in the event of it pushing lower, that might change some things, but even then I would still be watching like a hawk, you know. So it is what it is right now. I can't control that, but it's okay to, you know, to be aggravated. You're waiting for something to happen and it didn't happen. That's not cool. And people have money that they spend, you know. I get it. If you recall, there's a really powerful like cross trend here that I think is relevant to this idea of breakout. And it's this concept of symmetry. We were talking about that earlier. So this arc has really, really good symmetry. Like if you look at the measurement from this break to this break to this break, they're all the same. It's like equal parts. And then here to here is the same as like here to here. So we would be in like this junk on the right, you know what I mean? Somewhere over here. If you were just to continue to measure symmetry, we'd be on like the May 15th region or something, right? And you're like, well, that's not good because we're not breaking out. Well, don't get too like worried about stuff like that. There's the reverse thinking method, and then there's like a forward thinking. What I'm doing with this iteration stuff is like forward thinking. I'm not really considering the reverse of this anymore. Not that it's not important, but the timing was already there. Like, it's come and gone. The timing was like August 6th and 7th or something, you know? These were the 3 timing bars that I pulled from this side. It's there. So it's like, it's already happened. Like, I don't need to stress about it. That timing is finished. So we're just watching forward moving. IWM's closing above 202. It looks like it's going to. Oh, it did. It closed at 202.02. That's good. I wouldn't be surprised if it dropped. It is dropping a little bit after hour. I wouldn't be surprised if it dropped down to like 200 still. It's kind of a long road, but there's another support down here. You see that compression though? That's just so, it's so tight now. Well, Steven's bearish, so if he's saying it started, he's talking about downside flushing. But I don't agree with him, so we're just going to sit in disagreement on it. He might be right. He might not be. Not to answer on his behalf, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's thinking. Yeah, we'll check on charge point. This would be a place of pretty strong importance in the iteration sequence, so there does seem to be a little bit of a channel here. I don't want to go too much into like this idea of iteration as a compression. It's just going to give us a headache because we're going to be trying to like guess when it's over. The best way to do it is not to try to track it every single one. It's really just to wait for a change. And we already know one of the key things right here is this particular breakdown. It's happened 3 times, like 1, 2, 3. So it's easy to monitor a change of iteration if it comes above 503 now. That means it's not doing the same thing. Okay, so we don't have to like necessarily like watch every moment. We can just say, all right, we have some measurements. They might pan out. They might not. We kind of hope they don't because that would mean, again, we're not coming down super low. But if this dropped to like 467 and went up above 503, I'd be like, hey, I think it's changed. That's what I'm going to say to you, okay, when and if that happens. That's what I would be saying. So this is a super important pocket. I'm really excited about where this is setting up. It's right around the pocket here we want to be in. Right at that intro support level. I think it looks great. I don't know, but I'm weird, so who knows? I don't love that hook into close right here, like that little chop right there. I'm wondering if they're going to use that, kind of like they did here, to drop the price through. I think they did the same thing here. Try to drop the price again. They kind of leverage the closing value against us sometimes, and we're kind of in that pocket where it's still acting like supply. So I still think we're going to get a drop, but whatever. That's already happened. We already talked about that. Conceptually, like, we already knew that was probable. So this move on its own looks pretty much good to go. We just got to see those confirmations. And you know what? If it breaks down, it breaks down. You will hear it from me out of my own mouth. If I think it's breaking down, I will tell you. I think it's breaking down. And it would probably be in the event that we hook underneath here and then start driving to a new low, or if we end up with some kind of weird distributive SOS. In the past, I've found that these kind of cross trends tend to be pretty reliable. And what I'll do is I'll use them on the tops. So right now, I think that this is a fairly reliable trend. So this would tell me that there's a distinct possibility that once you cross this mark here, this white line coming down, again, that's part of that change. And it makes sense that that would happen, but I'm not going to go any further than that right now. I'm just going to say like that makes sense. There's usually like a pretty distinct jump. There was a chart I used a long time ago back in the March 2022 run up that was like a really cool, like almost like a Fibonacci arc. I was designing and creating like fib arcs. I still wish they did that on the chart. I don't know why. They could easily do it. I don't know why they don't do it, but I wish they did it. And but I think this as a Fibonacci arc would be really cool to see where you are and what you're hitting. I think it'd be really neat from top to bottom here, just creating that fib arch. I think you could find some really interesting things going on. But there was a chart I made way back then, and I really liked it, and it was a really strong chart. And as soon as it got over that top, it was like gone. I mean, it was gone. It was so perfect. Yeah, don't get a lot of charts like that. I kind of missed that chart. I remember really liking it because I was like, man, this is super like tight and like works really well. It's a long time ago now. Leave it to me to mourn the death of a chart. Let's get rid of some of these older signals. This one might actually be relevant, but I'm going to get rid of it anyways. What happened to GME? 2080. So it came back up. Not a big fan of that motion into close. Y'all already know that. It just feels like a cheap like trick or something. I don't know. So what happens if we come back down again, Booksy? Probably just want to look at retracement levels on GME. If this thing travels backwards, you're just going to look at, I mean, it hit the 382. That's right where it hit. So I would probably look back here at 1977 as like a low probable retracement, and then 2010. These are levels that are already there, so you can see them. Visually, this is built on a Fibonacci like almost perfectly. The stair steps. So you can see that that's actually straight up like touching that support level on the way out. So maybe this is the one that they want to come down real quick. I still need to see support. So if it's like AMC and it gets a final flush, no worries. But I would like to see it drop through here, hit one of these two supports, and then reverse and find support again here above 2060. That's still like a level of significance. And if it did that this time in this kind of a manner, the way I'm drawing it here, it would be like jumping that first creek. So it would definitely be over that first creek if it does that. So I want to see it. If it's going to drop, make a quick dip, go to 1970 something, go to 2010, and then push back up to that $21 level, and then find support at 2050. You're pretty much at that point good to go. And that's wave one. And then I think you're going to chop into wave two. Wave two typically has, see this M shape here? That would be what I would expect for wave two. I'm a little curious as to what happens this time around if there's a double cross, but maybe it's like double cross, dun dun dun. Maybe it's like this going into Monday. This would make sense to me, I suppose. And then it chops back down for half a second, and then it just continues. Sure. I don't know. That's a tougher one to do. I think this is going to be a weird hit. So I'm not sure. That would work. Though to be honest, I usually would expect it. I guess this is kind of all day. I put it on Wednesday the 14th. I know earnings is coming up too, so I'm putting on Wednesday the 14th for GME. But Wednesday ends over here. So it looks like a lot of more time than I gave it. Yeah, you may need to come back, and then you could potentially just rip. I don't think it would do that. I think it'd be more likely to come back down and hit the top here again, and then probably at that point just go like really, really fast. Get down. That would make sense to me. If you're going to go the slow, conservative route, that would probably be how I would do it. Like back up here, jump over first, jump over and accelerate into like a really fast motion. Yeah, GME does like to keep things kind of flat. Jump into a really fast motion advance over the middle, go parabolic, probably go really high to like 24, 2350, and then drop back down to retest that creek, big retracement, and then potentially go. And all that could happen pretty fast. Seems a little silly, but I guess we'll see. And this thing's dumping right back through support, so that's not good. So the distribution here did not hold at the 618, or I don't think at all on, figured it was distributing, coming back down, maybe doing a 618 pull down. It did do that. It did it here though. But that looks like it's going back down to like a full. I guess we'll find out. I don't want to talk about after hours price action until it's done. That's a nasty drop in extended hours, so not looking hot. We'll see. I like where it's at, but I think this is an important area to find support on MPW, right above 550 up to 567. But I don't like that it's trying to do this like almost head and shoulder business now. There's still gaps to the upside. Still, the idea of iteration is ever present here as well. I think this concept of push up, they're both 618 retracements. So at this point, this is a big push with a 618. This is a push with a 618. Both have similar kind of breakdowns with gaps. Up here at 575, up here at 520. It's like 555, I'm sorry. So it looks like they're leaving a lot on the table, but I think it's a similar story as AMC and GME. I think we're just kind of recycling through the motions, consolidating. It's taking a long time. It's a different market, so it could act very differently. Yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. Keep saying that, Bugsy. Well, what else could we do here that would be useful for our time, not a waste of time? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be done at this point. It just kind of is as it seems. I think that compression is fairly obvious, and I think we're in the mode of that compression where we should expect more down. I mean, if this thing doesn't go down as low and comes back up, I think it's just going to tear to the upside. So I'm not super concerned about timing. That wouldn't make any sense at this point. I'm trying really hard to figure out and understand what the deal is with You're asking me about the $3 target again? Do I think there's a high probability? No. Do I think that there's a possibility? Yeah. So the things that happen in the ending are always the same. There's always like some kind of a shrinking that happens. Typically, if that shrinking is bearish, you see it again more upward. It would chop more along the tops. It would be trying to it would have these upthrusts like it's trying to advance. And then it would be doing the same thing over and over, but in like almost like a weaker and weaker way, but towards the upside. That's just showing you those up. That's like what happened back here, guys. It's the same concept. This is that. It's almost like a bear flag. You're pushing up while doing these. You're covering. It just looks like shorts covering from a move, and then they're re-entering and blah 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 blah. Go look up Upthrust and Wyckoff, and you'll get a gooder. You said you're a wordsmith, Booksy. You'll get a better kind of rundown that I'm giving you about what the nature of it is, but I'm summarizing it for you. And it's fairly straightforward. So I don't think that there's a whole lot of fear for me of $3. I'd be more concerned at this point of just dropping below 430. You know, that's the first step of many steps. But the one thing that I can't get my head around, which keeps being, you know, every time we come back to that $3 mark, I have to just kind of look at it and say, all right, where is the upthrust at 483? Because I don't see it, you know. So that's when you're asking about probability, I'm like, it lowers so much, because if we had changed here, like if I saw this, I don't even know what it would look like because it's not doing it at all. But if we had come low, let's say after this, let's say pretend like we came low on the 24th. And then instead of doing this, instead of doing this rounded thing, we started kind of doing these up thrusts, right? And then we came back down again, and we stayed really low, and we started doing these up thrusts again. Like this to me would be an iterative function that looks far more bearish. And this is not what happened, right? This is where we were over here. This is not what happened. Like we spent predominantly all of our time in the top, almost no time below. So it's almost like it doesn't make any sense to me because it just doesn't look anything like what we're doing. So it's like very confusing. I'm trying to figure out why like 3 could be still on a lot of people's table. I'm trying to understand that. It's just very hard for me to understand it when there's no real evidence of this kind of price action underneath 484. Because in the end, I would expect this to happen, and then I'd expect there to be like a massive push-up. This is like a classic 4-top, by the way. You know, I'd expect there to be like one massive push-up that goes a little too high and fails, and then drops low and continues. And then you basically have like that. This is what happened in November of, frankly, of like 2020. What was that? 2021. Go look at November of 2021. It looks almost just like this to some degree. I mean, it's not perfect. But this is the kind of thing where I'm like, this is not what it looks like. It looks like the exact opposite. So I'm like really confused. Clearly somebody didn't want it to run back here. I mean, there's definitely some sell down that's happening here to try to drive the price low, but I don't see this like argument that it's distributing. You will go spend time in tops in a distribution, but a lot of that trading is predominantly low in nature. And again, oftentimes you see it rising, and that's the UTAD model, is like you might actually get a second rise that comes above the first, you know. It doesn't look anything like what we're doing. It's like almost completely the opposite. And with regard to, you guys are like, well, with the price action doing the same. No, it's not. There's not really a lot of volume in any of these tops. It's just kind of even keel volume. Chop, 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 chop. And the main volume is kind of in like the shakeouts, but Yeah. Oh, whatever. I don't know, man. I'm happy we're at 482. I'm just happy to be here. I think that we're in a good position. I don't really see the argument that we're bearish, so I can't really comment very much on it. I think back here I would have said it was more highly probable, because when we made this first move down, there really wasn't a lot of indication that this was necessarily going to recover. You know, you have to keep in mind that the sell down could have continued and it didn't. And when it didn't continue, you have to ask, well, why didn't it continue? Is this just then it's like a question of, is it accumulation, or is it because we're selling off shares higher? That's when we go to the interpretation of the range and we decide what we think it looks more like. There's elements of distribution early on, these big push-ups. But ever since then, it's been very much like an accumulation looking range to me. And this early portion is where I found a lot of those targets to 3 first show up. Now they're there, but they're there in like the way that those accelerated targets are there. It's kind of like every time we're moving, we're going to be targeting some kind of extreme, you know, and they're accelerating. So naturally, like I did say, hey, this is pushing back out really quick. But the accelerations to the downside are also increasing. Why don't you talk about that, Booksy? Well, because the accelerations to the downside aren't being met by big U-shaped things. They're being met by like V-shaped bottoms. You know, that's the difference. So could we sit here and like analyze where these guys are going and speculate about direction and all this other stuff? Sure. You know, they're going to accelerate just like the upside's accelerating, you know, and that's okay. So I'm not sitting here pretending like 3 is not possible. It's definitely a possibility. If it breaks down, it's going to go low. I've said that repeatedly. I don't fully understand the middle targets. 380 then is one that I come up with a lot. It's really like this top and then basically right through to 3. And that's probably all I could say about it right now is like, it would seem very likely to me that if this has a change of character and starts reversing direction with Upthrust right back to 483 and then selling down, that's where you know that things are really changed. S&P Global now raises AMC Entertainment's rating to CCC with any good news. I wouldn't worry about that. The news is already priced in. It's always in the minds of operators. I think the fact that Vanguard already had bought in and they have filings from like, I want to say it's early July or something like that, or middle July or something, I don't know. I mean, it just goes to show like they're not waiting for news to buy. I mean, they already had shares. They're buying, accumulating to some degree. That could be a negative thing. We've seen it in the past where they've used that to, you know, lend their shares out. But 'tis what it is. XRP is ripping. Well, that's the one that everybody attaches to GameStop. So maybe a sign of things to come. Maybe nothing. Good to know, though. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think probably gonna stop now. We won't really know much else till morning. I'm not a big fan of reading too much into extended hours price action because things can change really fast. And anything that happens in after hours could be easily undone in pre-market. So I'm just going to kind of chill on it and be patient. And I think tomorrow morning, try to hit it nice and early and see what's going on. I'm hoping that this is over sooner than later and we don't get this big drop, that we maybe dip to like 470 or something, and then I could just be early back here. But I think it's a position right now of possibility, you know. There's a lot going on and there's a lot of good here. I think it's hard to necessarily always see it, but it's there. Somebody said 460 a long time ago. They deserve more credit. Somebody had that as like a really important level for their chart. I can't remember who it was. But I think they were right. I think 460 is really significant. Maybe more like 465, but that one's really good too. I like that level. Hey, you're welcome. Long day, huh? Crazy day. Hopefully not too bad for most of you. I know it's not exactly what you want to see here, but I feel like it's really close either way, so at least we won't have to be waiting around too much longer, which is always nice. I hate kind of waiting around for AMC to decide what to do. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. I'm trying to decide if I want to do anything else here, but I think I'm just going to have to let it go. I was thinking about something and then figured it'd probably be better not to do it right now. End up sitting here for another hour doing something that I don't really need to do. And it's the first day at school. My kiddo's going to be home pretty soon. I got to get ready for that. Yeah, I wonder. The only other thing I could think to do now is just creek drives, but I think I've already done that. I feel like I've done that, so it seems a little bit pointless to kind of keep doing the same things just on a different chart. S-curve, S-curve, S-curve fail, S-curve fail, S-curve fail. Just need that change. It's not there yet. I'm not willing to get rid of this target just yet because that doesn't make any sense. All right. Let's move on with our days. I'm going to get stuck doing something else. Just looking at this level at 562, find it interesting because it came up a couple times and not really sure why. I was thinking about creek drives and how sometimes they triangulate targets, but they're not very good at timing. I don't know. I'm wondering about the it's Friday. This concept, it's kind of left it behind. But there might be something to it. I'll have to maybe I'll come back later tonight and just look at it. I probably won't stream, but I'll have something for you tomorrow. If I can, yeah, that's the same value. It's the same little lip. There's a gap on that one though. That's strange. Oh, weird. What? So this is I mean, it seems kind of pointless because it looks like kind of pointless to probably to you guys. You're like, well, who cares, you know? But it matters because the number 462 is something that came up a couple times lately, and I was like, not really sure why. There's one hit on it way back here, and that's about it. It doesn't appear to me to be super important. Maybe it's like a fib level somewhere. And then I started thinking about targeting the idea of 562. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said 462. The idea of targeting upside targets, I find that to be a bit curious. That window. Well, whatever. I don't know. I just like that window right here from Thursday to Friday. It's just a really nice window. I don't really know if it matters that much. It's just kind of there, and I'm not sure. Seems like there's a lot driving from it, but I don't have any other kind of evidence that that's going to matter very much. That's a good line right there, too. Dang, look at that. Dang. Y'all are like, what are you saying? Dang. Yeah, look at that line, dude. What the? Man, people will be reeling if this came up to 550 all of a sudden. There's this strange window. Now I'm like wondering about it. I was just thinking about upside targets in that previous range, how there was a drive. Man, that's... Why did that target come up? Oh, snap. Trend support. It's like funny how the ones that you think matter, they don't actually matter that much. And then like sometimes you miss. So looking at these supports, they really seem to be playing into, or if not into it, then away from 462 on Friday before it closed. That's not an SOS though, is it? It's not really. I guess it doesn't have to be. It could just be like a LPS. It's close to one. You come back down to 550 or 5 something on Friday. And then Monday just take off. How could we qualify that? How could we prove that to be a possibility? I don't know. Oh man, I wish there was something else I could do. I hate that I find these targets and I'm like not sure what to do with them. I guess I'll just put another line here and go from there. This is pretty interesting. Support. Oh. That's so weird. That's a really good, yeah, what? 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 That's a gap value. Darn. Spiderweb time. That would be bonkers. If... What? What? Even the downward one is like kind of pushing that way? What? You're like, I'm sorry, I can't listen to anybody that says bonkers. You're like a grandpa. It's bonkers. It's just bonkers. Wait, what is this one? Why did I do that like way out there? I don't know. Oh, because this was the first one I drew. Dang it. I hate this kind of stuff, dude. Talk about hopium. You guys should just stop watching. Dang it. All right. It's Friday at 1400 o'clock, which is 1 hour before, 2 hours before close. Maybe a web of deceit. We will see. But I think this is possible. It's kind of off the way I was looking at it before because it was in a weird spot. But now I'm like looking at it like, yep, this seems right. Right off that 483 mark. Ooh, baby. Woo! Just got chills, man. It should not be that good. That's really good. They're just speed lines, but man, they're strong. Man, some people would poop their pants if they saw this happen. Like, they would legit be pooping their pants. They'd be like, what? I'm suddenly heavier down there. Because this is nasty. Nasty. Some of you are like, please, Booksy, you're so elegant, and then sometimes you just say the word poop, and it just makes me think that you're a big fat child. Well, I'm a big fat... I don't know, something. Idiot. You can call me an idiot if you want. I'm something. I don't know. I ain't no James Bond, you know. You're looking for somebody that's like hyper classy and whatever. That's not gonna be me. Classy when I need to be classy, I guess. Make AMC run, Roaring Booksy. Yeah. Wish I could. I can't do that. This definitely puts us above the mark, so I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't really know exactly why anyone would want to interpret it this way, other than just me, because I like to see those things and pretend like I can perfectly know ahead of time. But it hasn't always worked out. I mean, there's things that happen that give you targets that don't seem to matter right away, or they indicate some kind of a pivot, you know. They're not necessarily like, because this could very well indicate like a bottom pivot. It would be super easy to imagine that if this ends up 2 hours before close on Friday, then it would be very, very, very easy for me to envision this as a termination point for the iterations, as opposed to, hey, it's going to run up into that spot. This would be more of like, this is when I expect there to be a termination point on that iteration. Because the compression, it's a way to measure the compression. Like, it should stop here. You know what I mean? So there should not be any more compression past Friday 1400, regardless if it's up here or not. That I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that, because I think that's what this might indicate more than just a target. Compression, I think that's a way of kind of measuring is using angles, right? Like a compass or something, or, you know, you're approaching a target. You can't go past the target and continue to iterate. So at this point, I say I'm going to say 1400, and you guys are like, I don't really like military time or whatever, but I'm going to do that because that's the way it is in my chart. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be up here on Friday, but I would expect that compression to end then because you can't go past it. So what that would mean is that there should not be another bouncing iteration after 1400 on Friday. It should pick its direction. Shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of stuff. You know, maybe I could have found that sooner, but I really wasn't looking for it. I just had this marker on there. And then the thought occurred to me that I've got a target and I should use that target with that. And then it's just like, oh, yeah, it's definitely there. And this has been going on for a while. So long-term compression, at least be back to here to July 8th. So this would be seen as like the first top. Pretty interesting. Very interesting, you know. I'm just amazed sometimes by these setups. Just crazy. I did not say we're going to be up here on Friday, 462. There is a 462 hit, but like I said before, I'm kind of going with the theory that this is not so much a target as it is like an anchor for a measurement. And I've been using this as a way of understanding possible bottoms, and so far it's been a bit of a mixed bag, so maybe not the best way to do it, but if we ended up on 462 at that time on Friday, it wouldn't surprise me. Likewise, if we ended up down here on Friday and it suddenly changed character, that also would not surprise me, you know? Like this is kind of like a wall. Like we were talking about that wall that you're kind of approaching. If you're in a iteration and you're shrinking, this is where the wall is, I think. So that's probably as far as I would leave it. 562. Thank you. I don't know why I said 462. Brain fried. I need to feed these cats and prepare for homecoming. Where's the there we go. No, it's not 6, it's 5. Probably just hit the wrong number. Yeah, 562. Yeah, thank you. So this is interesting because like currently the iterations don't have us going to a lower low, but the upward motion has us going to a higher high here than where we've been lately. What is this thing? Oh. That's right. It's that parallel line. I don't know why I messed with it. I shouldn't have messed with it. Well, hopefully this happens and we're running on the roller coaster soon. I don't have any kind of stronger evidence for that, for this particular thing. But man, I'd be pretty bullish if this walked out potentially. I don't know what I would expect to happen then. Now I'm like super curious. I'm excited to see what happens. Y'all like, nothing's gonna happen, Booksy. You always get excited and nothing happens. I don't know. It's just some kind of a clean build out there, though. So I really want to see what changes if we're not way up here. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow.